Okay, so in this part of the video, or maybe this is a brand new video, I don't know, ask my editor. I really don't have any creative control of any of these. Anyway, so let's just carry on with the series and see where this gets chopped up to. Following on from the last video, we looked at passing variables into functions, and we looked at how we could save those variables into other variables and pass them to functions. And we're getting to the point now where we can start making reusable function libraries. There's a couple of little points, though, that we're going to need to use later on that I want to discuss in this video. I think the best way to do it is probably actually make something now. So we've done a lot of like little looking at bits and bobs. We're going to start making something, and I think let's make a library function or a set of functions or something like that maybe. Let's go to the VS Code. And what we'll do, let's just bring this down a little bit. And in fact, we don't even need this. This is from the last video. Let's make another one. What should we call this? Let's call this, I don't know. So we'll call this one check existence. All right, so we'll make a check existence file here. Let's just start off with a shebang. Save that file. In fact, actually, before we even go here, let me just make a quick point. So one thing that's worthy of noting is quite often you might want to know if a human is interacting with your script or if it's another process interacting with your script. There could be very meaningful reasons why you want to know if a human's interacting, because maybe if it's a human, you're going to show some kind of option, some kind of menu, maybe some more verbose output. But if it's maybe a background process that's going to be running, maybe you could just wrap things using the disown command. Maybe you might want to chuck it into a tmux session so you can background it or something. There's reasons why we might want to know if a human's running our script. So let's actually look at this first before we go through building our script. What we'll do is, if you just look here, I'm going to do a little if statement. So I'm going to do if, and then we do the T option. Now the T option with the 0 is going to return true if a human is using our script. We can do something like that, and then we could do then echo human, and we can actually just end that like we don't need to like have an else or anything. So if it's a human, then echo human. There you go. So you can see now humans run the script. However, if we do, in fact as well, on another note, we don't actually have to do this whole syntax, by the way. We could have just done something like this. We just do this. It's still an if conditional, and we'll still get the same result. So you can look at the echo with the status command we looked at before, and you can see it comes back as 0. So it's still showing us that a human is running this script. If the input was not coming from us, if we're not interacting with this, and let's have an example of this. So let's do something like a redirect them from a file. So let's just do that, and then we'll echo out the status, and you can see now because the input has come from a file and not from a human, this is no longer true. So you might want to do this in your script to check if a human's running it. If a human's at the terminal running this script, then you might want to do some different actions compared to if this is just an automated process. And maybe you want to assume some default options if it's not from a human. So that's the first point that I wanted to get to in this video. Moving on, and in fact, actually, I'm going to start showing best practices now. So realistically, if we're going to make something, let's do it properly. So what we'd actually do is typically have some kind of document comment section at the top here that will give users in the future, or users of a tool, or even you, the ability to check what the tool is, when it was built, what version it's at. So if you do something like this with the comment structure, we could do something like file, and then we call it check existence, something like that. You might want to like have a usage note here, so it might be something like usage, and again, this nomenclature can be whatever you decide upon, but maybe just have some kind of documentation itself inside the function. So we call it check existence, and maybe we're going to check the existence of a file. No, a folder. Actually, I'll tell you what. We're going to check existence of multiple things. Okay, right? We can do a multi-check existence function here. So we'll just call this an item. Okay. Then we might need something like options, requirements, bug. Whatever it is. You could have quite a few things down here, and I encourage you to decide upon your own nomenclature and your own sort of patterns, I guess, really is what I'm saying to you. But like I would typically have something like, author here. So we could call this like legal saint. I might have, a version here, and this will be 0.1. I might have, either notes or bugs thing here, and then whatever, as things come up in your script, you can add them here. I'd probably have a created date. So in this case here, what we're on the 18th of the 2nd, 2023. And I might even want some parameters. So I might go parameter, and this goes, and then you could say here, whatever parameter, let's say parameter 1, and this is actually probably only going to take one parameter, but let's say parameter 1, and then it can be like, let's say a file, folder. We'll get to that when we get to it, but we'll check for the existence of multiple things in a moment. But it's always good to have some kind of statements at the top to give you an indication. It's really important to remember that you read your code more times and spend more time reading it than you do writing your code. So once you've done something and you wrote it and you've left it for a couple of weeks, you might come back and actually forget exactly how you run the tool or how you run the script or what it's about. And again, you might want some notes here. So like, notes, and then it's like, what we're going to build here. A function to detect what a various item is, let's say, okay? So we've got check existence. So let's just start building something. And as we build this, let's go through a couple of these additional points that we're going to need in the more advanced stuff coming up. So I'm going to build a function. Let's just call it function, and we'll call it a check existence. Use the brackets, curly braces there. So this is our function. Now, one of the things you might want to do next, depending on what your function is going to do, if we're making a port scanner that's going to scan low-level ports, we're going to need sudo access. Likewise, if you're going to amend system files, you might need sudo access. So how can we check for sudo access? So the way I typically do it is I'll do a local variable, and I'll call it prompt. I mean, you haven't got to call it prompt, you can call it whatever you want, but like this is how I do it. But you want something here that's local to the function, and what you're going to do is you're going to try and capture sudo nv, okay, but you don't actually want the output of this, so you're actually going to redirect this with a 2, then the redirect symbol, but you're not just going to put this to dev null, you're going to use the ampersand symbol to also redirect the standard input with 1 as well, and then you're going to put this into like a bracket system like this, and then you're going to do the prompt equals this, okay? So what you're trying to get back from all this, let's just copy this here. I'll come down to the command line. You can see now that this here didn't actually echo out. Sorry, not echo out. So it didn't actually return an error, because you can see here that if it returns an error, you can see the common syntax which would have occurred in VS Code, but just for the sake of it, let's just do this. Now, if we weren't the root user, this would have come back with 1. So what we need to do is we need to check on what that return is. So we go if, and then we do this. So that's our return status code. If this is not equal to 0, then we want to do something. So we go then, and then we'll end that with a phi. Okay. So what we're now going to do is we're going to do some logic in here, which is going to happen if we're not root. Okay. So in a minute, I'm going to have to switch users and run this script as a non-root user. But just for now, we're going to do the logic first, and then we're going to talk about what we're actually doing. So what I would like to do here is if it's a big script and it could potentially be like, a brute force tool or a word list, a discovery tool or whatever it is, we wouldn't want to run it multiple times by accident because it might be like a very significant big event, okay? So I like to use a lock file. So what I would do here is I'd echo something out first. So let's just actually echo out the problem. So the problem is, script needs sudo. Okay, so something like that, right? And then I would actually just say enter password. So we detected if it's sudo or not. Then I said enter password. Then on the next line, and you want to do this as the reason you do this first is you don't want to have to go down through other parts of the script before you request sudo, because you don't want bits to already run. Okay, if the script's already started before you've got sudo, and it's going to break later on, you really want the user to have this prompt, this return as soon as possible. So then I'll do something like sudo, and then this could be like touch, and the touch command is to touch a file. And I don't think it needs explaining really much with the touch command, but like if we go, in fact, let's just touch a file here. So if I go into this folder here, we do ls, you can see we just got the proof of concept script that we did from the last stage of this, and we got the check existence. If I was to do touch file.txt, Control L, you can see it's now just created that file. So that's what the touch command really does. It's just like create a file. So if I just delete this out. Now, the other thing the touch command will do is if the file already exists, it will try and update the timestamps and stuff on it. So, but we'll look into these kind of things shortly. But just for now, I would touch a file and I would do something like var, and I do this directory, so var run. Okay, so in this case here, we'll just do check existence. And I want this file to be the name of the program. And then the common nomenclature for these kind of things is the PID. So I do sudo touch var folder run check existence.pid. So at this point, if I wasn't the sudo user, it would prompt me at this point here to enter my sudo password in. Now, if I haven't got the sudo password, I'm not going to be able to proceed. So I could do something like else, and this could be just return 1. Okay, so let's just run that now on the command line. And I just remembered I haven't actually run it yet, so let's just do check. Like that. And what did I do? Oh yeah, of course, I didn't put the dollar here. So let's just do something like that. Sudo. Run it again. Okay. So because I was the root user, it didn't prompt me. Now, I'm not sure how many users I've got on this box, so let's have a quick look if I need to make another user. So I haven't got another user in the box. So what I'll do is, okay, so I'm now going to create a user, and there's two options to creating a user. There's the user add and the add user command. They've got very subtle differences. They both allow you to create a user, one at a very low level, one's a higher level with a more friendly interface. Just now, just follow what I do. But when we start creating scripts, we're going to use the other option. Okay, so right now I'm just going to go add user, like so. Oh, and I've got to add the name of the user, obviously. So in this case here, we'll call it demo. So now it's giving me a more friendly interface, and I'm able to set a password. If I use user add, it's going to be much more lower level, but it's going to have more. We're going to have to get more options, and it's not going to set a password by default. So in this case here, I'm just going to set a password. And okay, so that was too simple. Let's call right. So let's just think a bit more complex then. Okay. So now we've got our user interface starting here, and it's allowing us to add options like full name. And also, I'll talk about this in another video as well, and we will get to this when we're actually doing some automation. But just for now, just just do what I'm doing, okay? And the information is correct. The other thing between the sort of add user and user add is one does not create a home directory. Obviously, one doesn't set a password. So this option here is going to create a home directory for us, and it's going to create or prompt us for a password. Okay, so we've got our user now. We've created our demo user. So if I just do a su and I'll su into demo like so. Now when I run this script, it's going to ask me for a sudo password. So I'm going to do this. Now, obviously, I'm not in the sudo's group, so I'm not going to have a sudo password, but I'm just going to show you. To help if I actually run the script inside there. Okay, right, so apologies. Okay, so if I edit that now, you can see now it's coming back and saying the script needs to have sudo access, it needs us to enter a password. In this case here, our password won't work because we're not going to be in the sudo's group. Demo's not in the sudo's file, so this instance will be reported. But the point I'm getting at is this is how we check for sudo existence. So let's clear my screen now. I'm just going to exit back out of the demo user and back into the root user to carry on with our script. Okay, so now we've sorted that bit, let's go and back up to here. And actually, while we're here, let's just fix the obviously glaring error, which is obviously if we're already sudo, we're going to get a return of 1, which is not what we actually want. But like we've exercised the point here now of what we're trying to do here. In here, this is basically meaning that we are already sudo, so we wouldn't actually need to do this. But what we can do is we can do a failure. So like we could do how best that we could do this. I guess what we could do is if we come up here, we could say if, let's do, I don't know, let's echo out the prompt variable. So we echo out the prompt, we do a grep, like so, and then we'll use the Q option. Now I do want to go through some advanced grep, sed, awk, and wordless manipulation, but just for now, ignore the Q option and stuff. But like what I would do is I'd do something like this. So if the line started with sudo, then I would do this bit. But if the line didn't start with sudo, so let's go do something like this. So if the line didn't start with sudo, else, so let's do like an else, and then we'll say here's going to be the error. So echo out, and we'll say something like that. All right, and then you could do 5 here, and then what would happen here is we're basically seeing at the start of this line, which actually we didn't really see properly because of the $sign problem. So look, if we go back here and echo out this prompt variable, you can see because we're sudo, we don't get a line starting with sudo. Now, if I go back to the demo user and I run this, and I echo out prompt like so, it's not going to start off with sudo because we're not on the sudo as group. Okay, so the next option then would be if I added myself to the sudo as group, sudo is going to come up when this prompt gets started, and then I can detect that. And then here, if this line starts with sudo, I can say enter the password, else you need sudo. So the way to check this is now is if I add the demo user to the sudo as group, and then when I run this again, we'll see that rather than say, sorry, user may not run sudo on YouTube, you'll see a sudo prompt. So what we now really need to do really here is go back to the root user. So this account is going to be, this user is going to be a demo, and we need to add him to the sudo's group. And we can use the user mod command to do this, right? So if you just go user mod, we'll add him to the group, we'll add him to sudo, and we'll add the demo user, like so. So now demo is part of the sudo's group. Let's go back into demo. And then this time, when we run this prompt command, like so, you can now see sudo, a password is required. So if the user has this line starting with sudo, which is what we're checking for here, echo prompt, checking the line starts with sudo, then we'll allow him to add the password as we sudo this touch file. Else you need sudo, or we could say you need to be in sudo group, or say be in the sudo group, for example. But this is a good design pattern that you can use. So I like to use the sudo with a touch here. You don't have to have the touch command. It can be anything that requires sudo here. But obviously you want them to enter the password early on. So you've got sudo access. And this is something like I would typically do. I mean, you can refactor this a little bit. And you could even like try and do one-line if statements and stuff. But just for the clarity of this video, this is a good pattern. Now we said that we were going to check the existence of something. So let's do this bit next. And this will tie in then. So to check the existence of something, we need to pass in a value or a parameter. So let's pass in a string to start with. Okay, so we'll pass in a string, and we'll call the string string. In fact, just so it's more clear, my string, like that. Now we set up here. We set up here. In fact, actually, so there you go, folder or string. Okay, and we'll do all these. We'll do all these now. So we know we need one parameter. So what we can do here is after we've requested the sudo access, is we can check that there's actually one parameter being passed in. And if you remember in the last video, we was able to do that with the $sign and the hash. So if I come here and go if, and then we'll actually need, I think I covered this before, we'll probably need the double square brackets on this one here. So if we do if hashtag less than 1, now I guess like you could just do equal to 1, but again, it depends on how many variables you need to pass in. So you could actually just do if that equals 1, continue, or you could do something like if less than 1, send an error. Then down here you'd say echo need at least 1 value. Now, if it is actually just 1 value, we could have actually just done an additional if or a double nested if. So what I mean by that is, so let's say we could say if this is less than 1, or this is greater than 3. Let's say because you need to have at least 1 or 2 values. Then do the error. So you could do that syntax there. In this case here, I mean, as I said, we're doing off the top of our heads, aren't we? So we could just do the equal sign realistically. So we could just say, if equals, 1, then continue. If it doesn't equal 1, then exit out. So that's probably the better way. But there's these options you could do, the or. There's also the double ampersand as well. So, if this is greater than, or and it's also something else, so these are like the compound if statements that are going to make up the foundation of where we're going. So we can just do like the negative. So there's actually a couple ways we could do it. Like, so we could say if it's not equal, actually, so if this is equal to 1, continue and do something, and then else. So we could do if equal to 1, do something here, else, and put our positive code here. That doesn't really make much sense though. So we could do something like if not equal. So if not equal to 1. So if not equal to 1, we could also do it sort of like this as well. So if not equal to 1, the other way we could do it is we could actually put the mark here. So if we took the double squares off, we could do something like not, and then do equal to 1. But there's multiple ways of doing this. In this case here, it doesn't make sense to reinvent the wheel. So let's just do not equal to 1 like that. And then I'll just put that in the double square like that. So if not equal to 1, I need to at least enter 1 value. And then you could do something here, like return. And then down here, we could carry on with our code. Okay, so we're going to paste our comment block there. Just notice again, like I keep turning my camera off by accident. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start doing the existence check here. So the first thing I would do is I'd set a local variable. You don't really want to be using the $1 directly, especially for what we're going to do now. It's much better to have a much clearer nomenclature of variables. And also, ideally, we want to do some like validation, some input checking. So just using the $1 in a raw format is not really ideal. What we're going to call this? We're going to call this. It's not really a file. It's not a folder. It's not a string. It's a thing. Let's call it a thing. Okay, right. So we've got a thing. Now, to do these checks, to complete our function, we need to do an if. Let's just do some double if blocks here. Then, and let's just do, so we'd have actually, so let's just grab this syntax here. In fact, let's just do this. So if, we said a file first, let's do a file. So if thing is a file, and it's always good to have quotations around these in case there's space in the name. So if thing is a file, L if string is a folder, so in this case it's a directory. If not, we'll do an elif, and then we'll do this as an n. So if this is completely empty, then we'll get this triggered. So then just close that off. Let's do a phi. I just deleted the end of my bracket, haven't I? There you go. And so in here, we just go echo thing is a file. Thing is a folder. Thing is a string, like so. And then we just need to test it now. So the checks are going to go in the order of file, folder, string. And the reason this is important is because everything's quoted, a string that also resembles a file is actually going to be triggered first. So it's not going to just detect it's a string first, it's going to detect it's a file. So what I mean by that is, let's go here, and I think we had check existence like that. So if we were to do test, that would be a string. If we were to do, that's going to be a file. If we were to do not that we've got an old Etsy password, but that would also be a string. And if we were to do Etsy, that would be a folder. So let's just run this and get an idea. So if we just run this now, we can see this is a folder, this is a string, this is a file, and this is a string. But you can see the only thing separating this is the spelling there. Like so. I think it's now time for a bit more coffee. So I think I'll wrap that section up here. We'll have a quick pause. And then I think we need to I think we should look at default parameters and default inputs, and maybe look at maybe redirecting some stuff from standard in so we can make some piped up functions and commands. So let's have a quick pause for a quick coffee, and then let's just pick this up exactly where we are here. But yeah, I hope so far in general people are enjoying these videos. I hope people are liking these. If not, if you've got anything constructive or negative, You know, and obviously constructive but negative. Like just put in the comments. If you've got anything positive, put in the comments. You know, just if you want me to keep doing these videos, just thumbs up, subscribe, etc., and all that good stuff. Realistically, I don't do this for money. I don't do this for profit, but I have got an amazing editor, and he is doing all this work here. I guess for the hope of building this channel up. So you know, by thumbing this up and subscribing, you're actually supporting him as much as you're supporting me. But yeah, so let's leave it there, and let's go and have a coffee break. We'll come back and we'll look at some default values, and we'll look at maybe having some standard input and some redirections and stuff like this. And we'll start building this up as we go over the next probably hour and a half. Okay.